All right, feeling festive this Tuesday evening, afternoon, wherever you're listening from.
Yeah.
Excited to get into week 15 here, Mark, on the show. I've got a surprise for you later on in the show that you do not know about, of course. So I'm excited to bring that your way. But I know to open the show, you wanted to, throw out a little game or trivia or
A
what you
little
got.
I was just I was mad at myself this morning. As I was prepping for the show, I was going through a bunch of stuff, and because we're not going to do a show next week, at the end of the show, I have obviously the Super Bowl playing, but I'd also like to just go over Week 16. Next week is going to be just this weekend's going
It's
to be
insane.
really
Yeah.
fantastic, just like this weekend was. And so I have kind of like some matchups to go through, and then I was looking at some other things, and I wanted to see if you could guess this because I got it wrong in my head, and I had
I love this.
two of the people right, but in the wrong order. So who currently leading the NFL in touchdown passes with 36?
Who is currently leading
Yes,
the
currently through Week 15, leading the NFL
well,
as of this morning, leading the NFL 36 touchdown passes. Some guys had some big numbers this weekend.
yeah, I mean, my guess was Joe Burrow because I was pretty sure he was leading a few weeks ago, but he did have like a 1 or a 2 touchdown game in there, and I don't know if Josh Allen the last 2 weeks usurped. I'm gonna guess Joe Burrow.
It is Joe Burrow at 36, and that's the one I got right. I was like, I'm sure about that.
Okay.
Joe Burrow's
Yeah.
is having a stellar season. Can you guess who's at number 2 with 34?
I mean, my guess was gonna be Josh Allen.
Josh Allen
It's
is not
incorrect?
in the top 4. It is
Really?
any other guesses you want to
Interesting.
get? You want to get another guess before I throw it to you? 34.
Yeah, so it's obviously I mean, that would be kinda crazy. I was like, did Jaden Daniels somehow because he had that, like, insane run, but he was running for a lot of touchdowns, so I don't think it
Yeah.
was him. Um,
This is touchdown
Tua just
passes,
had too many.
not total touchdowns.
Right, just
Not
touchdown
total touch, just
passes.
touchdown
I
passes. 34.
is it Goff? Is Jared Goff number 2?
Jared Goff is 4th, and so I have the top
Okay.
4. Jared Goff is 4th with 30. There is someone with 34 and someone with 32.
I'm gonna guess Baker Mayfield has had a couple huge games.
Baker Mayfield is number 3 with 32.
Ah,
So you're
okay.
missing number 2 with 34
Don't
touchdown
tell me it's Sam
passes.
Darnold, dude. Don't tell
It
me it's
is
Sam
not
Darnold.
Sam Darnold. Sam
Okay.
Darnold and Josh Allen are at 5 and 6 on the list, just under 30. There's only 4 guys with over 30 touchdowns. Goff at 30, Baker 32, Burrow 36, and the mystery person at 34. You're gonna
Yeah,
be so
I'm just like
you're gonna be
looking at
so
all
mad.
the
You're gonna be so mad. And this is I'm the same way. I was so mad at myself. I was like, the name just didn't hit me, and I'm like, this dude is just unbelievable what he's doing, and he's just year after year after year.
what? I truly Jordan Love.
No,
He
you
got
ready for it?
hurt. He
You
was
ready for it?
hurt. Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, 34. He just had another 5 touchdown
I just
game.
didn't think he had that many.
He's at 34 touchdown passes, Lamar. So Josh Allen,
That's
Josh
bad.
Allen,
Yeah, I am very upset myself.
Josh Allen in the last 2 weeks had, I think he had 5 touchdown passes and 5 touchdown runs. I mean, he's had 10 total touchdowns the last 2 weeks. To me, Josh Allen is the MVP, but Lamar, it just goes to show you once again, and they traded for Deontay Johnson. He's been benched and like a no-show.
Yeah. No, they released him now.
And now they just released him today.
Yeah.
And so it is like what Lamar Jackson has done has just been incredible. And then you think about Baker Mayfield at 32, Sam Darnold at like 28 or 29, Jared Goff at 30. These are guys, these are not Mahomes. These are, you know what I mean? These are guys who are outperforming numbers wise.
Yeah.
The Mahomes, the CJ Strouds, the Justin Herberts, who we all put ahead of them, the Trevor Lawrences, we all put ahead of them going into the year. But Baker and Goff are having statistically and wins wise and leading their teams incredible years. And Lamar, again, 34 touchdown passes for the 2-time MVP. He's having statistically, an MVP season. I just think, and I think Lamar, though, his only chance to kind of maybe make a late season push, can they win out and win their last 3? Can they win that division?
Yeah, they got to win the division.
And if he gets up to 40 plus touchdown passes doing that, you might have a real case. I think he's still like a distant second in the
It'll
betting
just
odds.
be hard though.
You might want to
still
sprinkle
beat out Josh.
Like, it will be because Buffalo, if Buffalo slips and they lose a 4th game, the Ravens have 4 losses. So if they win out, they would be tied. But Ravens would then have a tiebreaker over Buffalo head-to-head matchup.
Well, and the Ravens have 5 losses right now.
Oh, they have 5 losses? Dang.
Yeah, they're 9-5.
I'm just saying, if you're looking for a distant sprinkle, put $10 on Lamar Jackson winning the MVP. I think it's good money right now. And that there's a chance the way the season ends, especially with this big game coming up this weekend, which we'll talk about at the end of the show, Lamar Jackson could be right back thrust into that MVP discussion.
Wild stuff. All right, let's get into a jam-packed Week 15 and maybe look a little bit ahead to Week 16 in the NFL slate. We got Saturday games, we got Christmas Day games, a lot of craziness to get to. My bad on that, by the way. Diontae Johnson was not released. He was mutually excused from participating
time
with
away,
the team. For
the
this
dude
week.
is a head case. And he put up some good early numbers in Carolina. And then he's fallen off the map the rest of the year. And I thought this trade for him was a really great idea for Baltimore. And it's just not worked out at all.
Yep. No, it's been pretty bad the entire way there for Diontae Johnson in Baltimore. Week 15 was a wild one. It was a week where Carolina was favored for the first time in 33 games.
And I don't think they'll be favored again for a while.
No, I don't think so. They really, screwed the pooch on that. And then, of course, some epic battles went down and another death knell dealt to the Detroit Lions. More injuries compounding. David Montgomery now out for the season. Aleem McNeil out, Carlton Davis having
McNeil is such a stud.
That's brutal. I it's been talked about a lot this week on sports radio and TV. I'm not sure I've seen a team have to weather so many like high profile injuries in one year and still perform admirably. But man, you do have to question now. And I know we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here with the Lions talk, but just about the state of the team in general, you do have to have concerns, right, moving forward if they can, make the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl now, given these are very impactful players that they've been losing.
Yeah, the 1 seed is becoming more important for them, right? Because the Lions can win and compete in shootouts, and that's how they're going to have to do it. But they're not doing that if they're at Lambeau Field, if they're at Minnesota or anything else. They could do that when they're at home, when they have the crowd noise on their side to help their defense, when they have the quiet on offense to help their offense in that atmosphere. If they're on the road at Philly, good luck stopping that team with backups and backups to backups on your defense and trying to score and keep pace with that. So it's for Detroit. I still think it's possible for Detroit to make a Super Bowl run, but the window has gotten really tight, really quick. And now you have to win a certain way. That's going to be really a fascinating thing to watch for them down the stretch. We'll talk more about the Lions throughout the show for sure.
It would be brutal for them even more so if, they didn't have significant depth at the running back position. I mean, the fact that they lose a top guy like David Montgomery and still have a top 10 running back in the league to feature back there is helpful. And maybe the silver lining to this as well is that, he's had load management all year, Jahmyr Gibbs has, where he hasn't had to take the brunt of the work. Yeah. The flip side is now he's going to have to carry the load and will that, wear on him as we get into the playoffs, but that will be seen, in the coming weeks and down the stretch. But we'll get to our best win, worst loss of the week. I'd like to start with the loss first, Mark.
Ooh, okay.
And if and maybe if you don't mind, I'll take this one to kick things off. I think one of them I took the low hanging fruit on. The other one here with the worst loss, maybe we have the same one. I'm not sure, but I think I went a little bit outside of the box from what I would normally just go for the clear cut worst loss. And for me, it's the Miami Dolphins losing to the Houston Texans. This loss for Miami almost certainly eliminated their shots at playoff contention. Now, of course, they're not mathematically eliminated. They can still win 9 games and potentially backdoor in. But with the Broncos showing no signs of slowing down, they seem to be on the doorstep of that 7 seed. The Chargers, they did lose, but are still there. The pathway becomes so slim for Miami, to where it's just not plausible really for them to have a playoff spot. And I'll admit, midway into the season, we're like, it's done. Miami's done, just punt. But I really did start to feel like there was a chance there just because, Tua was efficient, but the last couple of weeks, they haven't looked good. This past week, they get back. We talked about how they couldn't play in the cold and like how the Packers got them, they come back. They're playing in a dome. Yes, they're on the road, but at least they have the conditions to their liking. And the Texans force 4 turnovers, and Tua doesn't look good. And they looked terrible, Mark. And to lose 20-12, they had a chance down, late in this game, so you could say they didn't get blown out. But it really was kind of a dominating effort from the Texans throughout this one. And, now Miami's flicker of hope completely vanished. It happened to a few other teams too. I liked a lot of the other candidates for this worst loss. But given what they've dealt with this year, and given that everything was, tailor-made for them to maybe try and get back in this one, it was just disappointing. I think Miami fans are rightfully really upset with how this season has turned out, and upset with their head coach too.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. You nailed that with Miami. Mike McDaniels, his record is, I think, 10 games below 500 in his career against teams above 500. And so that, I think, says 2 things. I think Mike McDaniels is a really interesting and a quality offensive coach. So why are you only scoring 12 points on the road in a must-win game against a defense that's been okay this year?
Yeah.
And you're supposed to be the offensive guy. And overall, you're healthy, right? I mean, I know they lost Waddle during the game, but you go into the game with the pieces ready to go, with your quarterback ready to go. Listen, Tua is a problem. Tua is this is the type of game that like Kirk Cousins would have 5 years ago. You'd be like, yep, just laid an egg, and you just can't do that. And we've always said it just feels like Tua's ceiling is Kirk Cousins. And so am I pressing the panic button? No, but I'm just saying, like, if you thought differently, then you should probably be pushing the panic button and thinking, Tua could be a top 5 quarterback. This season is just proven once again, it's just not in the cards for him. He's that fringe guy, top 12, where, he can put up big stats early in the year if he's healthy and if things are really good, the keyword being if in a lot of those scenarios, then Tua could maybe lead you to a playoffs.
I think that's why I picked this one here too, is because of everything that has also culminated in this.
Yeah, it's a smack in the face.
So many questions now. Yeah, it's the head coach. Is this guy actually the guy? Now that you're not going to make the playoffs, almost certainly, is the head coach the right guy? Is this quarterback really what you want to move forward with? Tyreek Hill's coming up at the end of his career. Just so many questions around Miami, and
is this year
Buffalo's not going anywhere.
Is this year 1 or year 2 of that mega deal? Is this
for Tyreek?
For Tua.
Oh,
did he signed that I think it was last offseason, right?
Yeah, I believe this is year 2 on that deal.
Well, that's interesting.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah,
I'll say this, Dan. Can I quickly mention the Texans? Last show, I brought up the fact that the Texans had to be on like upset alert, right? Like they put the antennas up. The Texans may miss the playoffs. What a win for them. Not ugly.
Yeah.
They have been like the B version of the Kansas City Chiefs all year, right? Like you're just waiting for everything to click. It hasn't felt like it's totally clicked, and yet they're still going to win their division and still going to be hosting a playoff game. Now, what's the ceiling for the Texans right now? Do you feel confident them beating Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City? No, I don't feel confident of them beating any of those 4 teams in the AFC. So, pecking order wise, they feel like a host a wild card game. Maybe you win, you at home, and then you're out in the second round type of team. Obviously, anything can happen when you get in the playoffs, but we still just haven't seen the spark from Houston for them to feel like all of a sudden here. Like, I know they had a big win against Buffalo early in the season. That was 12 weeks ago. Like, this is a different league now. It's a different teams now. And I'm hoping I'd be hopeful if I was a Houston Texans fan here down the stretch. I see that spark and I see that, hey, we go out there and we beat a team like Tennessee in the final week of the season 43-10. And we're just like, all right, we're flexing some muscles here. They've had cluster injuries at wide receiver all year. It wasn't, Stephon Diggs and things the way they wanted it to go. So can they find some energy here late in the season, or will they just be a team that wins their division and that's about it? But hey, still nothing to, balk at. They were a team that was picking second last year, and look where they are at now.
Right.
So,
yeah. No, that's very true.
Still, it's a.
By the way, Tua's contract was this July, so 4 years extension this July.
So they can't do anything until probably this time next year. They're probably locked in
at the earliest
next year. Because I was going to say Sam Darnold in Miami would be really interesting. The Sam Darnold sweepstakes is going to get really interesting. Colin Cowherd brought up today, Indianapolis. Talk about interesting. Him with Bobby Slow. Him with not
that
Bobby
could
Slow.
work.
What's his name? I can't. The coach.
Shane Steichen.
Shane Steichen. With Michael Pittman and Taylor and a solid offensive line, in a winnable division. So we'll talk. We have plenty of time to talk that. Dan, for my worst loss, I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks at home, 30-13 to Green Bay. The reason this was the worst loss is not because Geno got injured, but because this game wasn't competitive from the jump. In a must-win game at home, to prove you belong is in the upper echelon of the NFC teams, to prove you belong in the conversation with the Vikings, with the Packers, with the Lions, with the Eagles. You lay a complete egg at home. Defense didn't look good. It couldn't stop Josh Jacobs to save your life. He's been phenomenal this year. You let Jordan Love go 20 of 27, 229 yards and 2 touchdowns, hot knife through butter. And then more importantly, you just add on top of that, your quarterback gets injured, and it wasn't even competitive before he got injured. They were down at halftime 20-3 in that game. And now you let every other team back in that division. The Rams are now, if the playoffs were to start today, they're representative of the NFC West. So just a devastating loss in so many ways for Seattle.
It is brutal.
It had to be Seattle for me. So I'm glad you went with Miami so we can have some different conversation on that, because I think the Miami conversation is very worthwhile having at this point. I'll say this about Green Bay before I turn it over to you. It feels a lot like last year, right? Where they're going to be that
surging
team that can play anyone at any place and have an identity. And when you have an identity in the NFC with the Josh Jacobs, and you have a quarterback in Jordan Love, who, let's be honest, right now, passing the football, do you trust him right now in the fourth quarter with the game on the line and you have to throw the ball, or do you trust Jalen Hurts? I love Jalen Hurts, but I feel like Jordan Love right now is the better passer in the pocket quarterback who, if I need a big throw, I trust him. Now, do I trust him or Darnold?
He's a little riskier, yeah.
He's certainly riskier.
But bigger ceiling in that regard.
High risk, high reward. I hate that Green Bay looks the way they do right now. They look really good. Matt LaFleur, how are we not talking about him more? His only down year,
incredible.
His only down year was the last year with Aaron Rodgers, when Aaron Rodgers was a shell of himself, hasn't been the same, and had the organization by the balls. And ever since they cut bait with Aaron Rodgers and before Aaron Rodgers had the down year, it's been nothing but NFC North titles, NFC championship games, deep playoff runs. Matt LaFleur might be the most consistent coach in the NFL right now. The NFC North is just incredible. It's an incredible.
And I don't know. Has Matt LaFleur won Coach of the Year?
I don't know, but again, the three NFC North coaches all should be in the running. I think Mike Tomlin should absolutely be in the running. I think Andy Reid has to be in the running. They have the best record in football, for Christ's sakes, and he's about to win his third Super Bowl in a row. He hasn't won enough Coach of the Years. There's a
Dan
lot of
Quinn, if Washington,
Dan Quinn
starts
won a
to string
turnaround.
together more things, and
there's a lot of candidates. A lot of candidates for Sean
not just
McVay,
a lot of
what he's
candidates,
done.
but a lot of very worthy head coaches. But you could have said Mike McDonald with what he's done in Seattle. Like you could easily make the case if the Seattle made the playoffs that he deserves a nod there.
There's a lot of been bad coaching. We've already seen 3 coaches fired and more to come, but there's been a lot of good coaching in the NFL this year for sure.
No doubt. All right. Well, I'll let you swing back to your best win. Who you got for that?
I will happily take that, and I am going to me with a pretty easy one. The Bucs 40-17 over the Chargers on the road in LA. They bullied the bully. Jim Harbaugh turned the Chargers into a bully. So I'll start really quickly with the Chargers. It was almost my worst loss, but because the Seattle lost the division as opposed to and are out of the playoffs, the Chargers are still in the playoffs and we're never going to win their division. But the Chargers, listen, they don't have Dobbins, and they're a shell of what they want to be right now, which is a power run football team. And as much as I love Justin Herbert, McConkey is a fun story, but he's their number one right now. Him and Quentin Johnson. I mean, they need a Jamar Chase type wide receiver so badly, like so badly.
Yeah, they just need an X. They need an X. Not really.
And then you have like a really capable 3 in Quentin Johnson, who's developing and building confidence. And then you have Wes Welker 2.0 in Ladd McConkey. And all of a sudden, with that offensive line and that run game, now you're talking about something. But listen, the Chargers, Dan, they ran, I have it written down here, I don't want to mess up, 11 carries, 32 yards for their running backs. I mean, that's not the Chargers. They got freaking punched in the face over and over again by Baker Mayfield, who was 22 of 27, 288 yards, 4 touchdown passes. Mike Evans is healthy, and he's catching Mike Evans up. 9 catches, 159 yards, 2 tutties. The Bucs are absolutely such an interesting team down the stretch. Them and the Rams are like the same team on opposite coasts. If you are the Vikings, the Lions, the Packers, you are shitting your pants about having to not win your division and go on the road to Tampa or LA week 1 of the playoffs. You could be a 13-win, 14-win Lions or Vikings team, or a 13-win, 12-win Packers team
easily,
and be out in round 1 because you're playing an offensive juggernaut in Tampa or LA that is just peaking at the right time right now. Yeah, they don't have as many wins with you through the slog of the regular season. But Dan, as we enter a 17-game regular season, and within the next couple of years, an 18-game regular season, it's going to be a lot more about peaking at the right time and the onslaught of, what you did in September doesn't matter as long as you're healthy in January and you're peaking and you have home playoff games. Now, when they go to 18 games, I also think they'll probably change the format to the 1 and the 2 getting buys again. I think they'll have to do something like that to kind of keep it competitive edge, right? You go through the slog. We'll get to that when we get to that. But this Bucs team is so much fun. I give Todd Bowles credit for his defense stepping up and having a really great game plan against the Chargers on the road in a must-win for them. They've been kind of in the playoffs. The Rams, the Bucs, their playoffs have already begun, and they are winning football games impressively. That, to me, speaks volumes. And for the Chargers, I'm not panicking about them, but they're clearly now, to me, a team that will be a wild card, and they'll get smoked in Buffalo or smoked in Kansas City round 1, or smoked, I maybe not smoked if they end up in Houston, but I don't think they will. You know what I mean? Like they're not making a championship game. I thought maybe they could have 2 or 3 weeks ago. They're not making a championship game.
I don't see it either. Yeah. No, that's tough. I
but
am wondering. Now you said
the Bucs could make a championship game.
Bucs could.
I
I
feel
could
like
see that.
we'll check the plane later, but I'm starting to feel that momentum.
I also love the fact that, I mean, you mentioned it, that Baker's catching Mike Evans up. Evans is 250 yards away
From
from having
1,000.
his 11th straight
He'll
1,000-yard
get it.
season. So
He'll get it.
3 games for 250 yards, he
He'll
can
get
he
it.
can easily get there. Needs like what,
He'll get
80 a
it.
game? He can get it.
Yeah.
So I really hope he does. I really hope he does, 'cause that would
85
be
a game.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he had 160, so yeah, he just, if he has one more like blowout game, then it's
He'll be fun.
yeah, then he's got that in the bag. And that brings up an interesting conversation that kind of goes with, I was gonna bring it up during the Steelers game talk, but I think it works for literally any of these teams that we're going to be talking about that mean anything at this point of the season. Is that in September and even in October, you could argue it's all about accumulating a record in
Yes.
those 2 months. What matters most is winning. It doesn't matter how you win. It's just about getting those wins and getting that bank, right?
Cushion. Banking win.
The
Absolutely.
cushion. I feel like basically post Thanksgiving and all of the rest of November and all of December isn't just about accumulating wins, especially for the teams that need to get wins late to get into the playoffs, but it's also very, very much about how you win
Yeah.
and how you lose. I think those matter a lot in December, where they don't at all almost.
It's a great
You
point.
could lose a game and afford to lose a game, but how you lose the game, it says a lot, because as you pointed out, like, you're getting only a couple weeks now of the ability to gain momentum going into the postseason. Limping in almost never works out for teams. We've seen it time and time again. So how you win this time of year, especially with the opponents that you tend to play this time of year, matters a ton. And so that's why the Bucs dominating the Chargers like this, that says a lot. Like, yeah, okay, their record may not be as great, but
They're
this
a
says
good
a lot
football
about
team.
how they're winning.
And Dan, I think you nailed it there, especially when you add on the fact that, think back to when we're in August and we're just giddy for football. We all know in the back of our head, like, hey, the Super Bowl's played in February. Now, it'll be warm or in a dome, wherever they're playing that actual game. But the road to the Super Bowl begins in December, when the weather is completely different and can throw so many wrenches into the game. So what is the makeup of your team? How healthy is your team for that stretch? And you're right, banking wins. That's why now, if you're the Chiefs, you're feeling great. That's why now, if you're the Lions, it sucks, because you had another team in your division who's basically gone win for you for all these. The Lions just had an 11-game win streak, and now they could still lose their division. That's how
It's
crazy.
insane.
That's how crazy the Vikings run has also been, and we'll get to both those teams here coming up in a bit.
Well, you said it right there, because that's my best win, was the Bills defeating the Lions 48-42. I mean, this was head-to-head heavyweight matchup that we were all excited to see. We saw it earlier this year.
I want it again.
Look, it was so good, and Josh Allen is the clear-cut MVP. He dominated, but Jared Goff was really good in this game. They were just,
touchdowns, 494 yards. 494 yards.
Yeah.
First time in NFL history QB had that stat line and lost.
Yes, I did. I do remember seeing that. And they didn't get much rushing production at all, the Lions, in this game, despite having that two-headed monster. 15 carries total between Montgomery, Goff, and Jahmyr Gibbs. So that was a little bit uncharacteristic. That does go to show that they can win in so many different ways, and they have. They've shown it many times this year. But the Bills, they have shocked me, man. Like, obviously last year, I thought we had seen the best of the Bills that we were going to see, unless something drastic changed. And the only drastic thing that changed was they got rid of Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, two of their better, offensive playmakers.
But Shakir has been great. Amari Cooper's
very good
in midseason has been very good.
Yep. But the thing is, none of these guys have had to dominate. That's what's impressive. Is
Matt
that
Collins,
this has all
Matt
been.
Collins. He's barefoot stadiums. He showed up for this team too.
I mean, look, everybody. Ty Johnson, the running back of all people, had 114 yards receiving. Everyone else had 64 or fewer. I mean, Josh Allen spread the ball around to 10 different receivers in this game. That's why he is the MVP.
It's freedom.
Yeah, it just opened it up, man. It opened it up. It gave him the ability to run the ship, and it's been spectacular to see. I just thought, again, this goes to my point, like how they won. It's like it gives you a feeling of, okay, they beat the Chiefs, who offensively have not remotely been the team that we've seen offensively from the Chiefs, in years past. Um, so we're like, okay, we've seen them beat Miami, who has like a very like speed oriented, fast, quick paced offense. They handle business there. And then they go toe to toe with the offense that can take them to the wire, and they win it too. This has catapulted the Bills to the number one team in the league for me. I mean, the last like month has made me feel like, no, it's not the Chiefs that are the team to beat anymore. They are in the terms of the overall grand
Yeah.
scheme of who's won the Super Bowl last 2 years. But in terms of like who's playing, I would take the Bills in a head-to-head matchup with Kansas City today in Arrowhead. Like I feel that confident with how Buffalo is playing right now versus what we've seen with Kansas City and now the banged up Mahomes. Like this was the real deal, and to me, the best win of the week. It was against the Lions. I mean, it was against the Lions in their home. Impressive win.
Yeah, the Bills have to feel really confident about this. I will say this about the Bills, kind of Super Bowl prospect. We know they can beat Kansas City in Kansas City in the regular season. We haven't seen them do it in the playoffs. And I'll say this for the Bills. The one thing they have going for them, because the negative I've heard, well, Mark, they gave up 42 points. Like their defense isn't good. That's not a Super Bowl defense. But I'll say this. I'll just say this, is that the only team, in my opinion, that can truthfully, against an NFL defense, just easily put up 42 points. I know the Bills don't have a top 10 defense, but just like, hey, this is an NFL. The Bears defense has fallen apart. And even last night at Minnesota, a great Vikings offense could only hang 30. Like I was predicting, I thought it'd be 37, 38. It would be a blowout. And even then, so guys, you know what I mean? They have pride. Like you get a stop, you make a mistake. So the only team I truly think that can just easily put up 42 on any defense in the NFL is Detroit offensively, and then Buffalo offensively. And so the Bills don't have to worry about that, facing that in the AFC. There's not an AFC offense that they'll go through. Maybe Baltimore, you can argue maybe Baltimore, but we know Lamar's history in the playoffs has been very shaky, and they would get Baltimore at home. So again, huge advantage for Buffalo.
Yeah.
Kansas City, the worry is mentally for Buffalo when they get in KC. What does that do to them?
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So now
and
on
just
the
magic
side,
of Mahomes, like if he gets the ball with a minute left in the game, it's like, okay, you're taking the Chiefs,
On the flip side, I do worry if I'm a Bills fan. In the NFC, I think there is the Vikings, the Lions, the Packers, and the Eagles.
A Super Bowl is concerning.
Who all could put up 40 points on that Bills defense. And besides the Lions, the Packers, the Eagles, and the Vikings, they're not giving up 48 points. So to me, the Bills are really, really interesting. And I agree. I put them number one in my power rankings this week as well, just as hey, you dethroned my number one. I'm going to give you that bump. But I still am not sold yet on the Bills being the Super Bowl favorites. I got to be honest. It's going to be, I think in the AFC, they have the mental challenge of Mahomes. And then once they get to the Super Bowl, they have, if they're playing the Packers, the Lions, the Vikings, or the Eagles, it is going to be a tough matchup for them because their defense is not great in Buffalo. It's not great.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is like you can get like sometimes you do just get into shootouts. I know Kansas City can say they haven't. They haven't been the team that's had to do that. But they did give up 30 to Buffalo. I mean, it's sometimes you just get in these situations where it's going to be a shootout, and that's just what it is. They were on the road in a very, very hostile environment.
If you're
with one of the best offenses that they could ever encounter, so it's like I get it, but like if the Steelers gave up a ton to the Bengals, and the Steelers defense is undoubtedly better than Buffalo's, but they're still capable of having a
Absolutely.
downer.
If this was the first ever season of NFL football, we would
What
look
a
at Josh.
treat.
We would look at Josh Allen and be like, "There's never going to be. That's the greatest football player we'll probably ever see." Like
Yeah,
he is so big, so strong, and now he's so efficient with the football, running the touchdown runs. Jalen Hurts gets the touchdown runs, but they're all tush pushes at the 1 yard line. He steals the carries from Saquon.
Josh Allen
is
40
running the ball in from 15 yards out, 20 yards out, 5 yards out. I don't know how long it lasts for Josh Allen. I don't know if he's a 15-year NFL player, but right now in this window, the dude
remarkable.
is just so special, so special.
Like, I'll just say, like, if Cam Newton's, and I know they went 15-1, but if Cam Newton's the MVP that year, that's what Josh Allen's doing that this year.
Josh Allen's
at a better rate. Yeah, he's looking even better, and that was an insane year from Cam Newton.
Yeah,
so that's like we gotta appreciate what we're watching right now, because it is really special stuff.
Final thought on the Lions, because we'll move on from the Lions. I will just say this. Dan Campbell, did you hear his radio spot today? I retweeted.
No, but I heard people talking about it.
He did like a Detroit radio thing, and it basically just to fire up the fan base. Like he dropped F-bombs, they had to dump it. You know what I mean? Like he was just like, I don't care if we go 70 yards and we win 3-0. I'm going to be smiling. A win's a win. Like we're at the point of the season, like I'll win however we got to win. Like, because they're like, coach, how are you going to deal with like, you're literally, I think from their opening day 11 starters, like 7 of the defensive starters are on IR. It's insane what's happened to the Lions.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
And he's like, or we'll win 44-41. Like, I don't care. Like, we're going to fucking find ways to win games because that's what we do. And he's like, and he said something. He's like, I'm glad we lost. We've been eating crab legs for the last 11 weeks. Well, it's back to eating moldy bread. Like, what? It's insane. And I'm just like,
man, this guy.
There's no way the locker room can't just be like, I fucking love this guy. And people are trashing him for the onside kick. It's a dumb onside kick. It was a dumb onside kick.
It was bad.
Because there's no more surprises with onside kicks. And I get the whole, like, he's sending a message to the league. He doesn't trust his defense. In that game, you don't trust your defense. I don't think he's sending a message like, next game, I don't trust my defense. Let's re-scheme. Let's see who we actually have in this building. They're going to have to sign some guys. They're going to have to promote guys from the practice squad. But in that game, hell no, he didn't trust his defense. So fuck it. Let's go for an onside kick. They were already down big. What does it matter? I love, again, I think the buy-in from that team is there, which is why I'm not writing the Lions off as dead yet, as a lot of people are. I just think Man Campbell and Jared Goff, they'll find a way.
I wouldn't write them off either. I mean, their offense is still great.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire just got dumped.
Yeah.
Like they should go out and find. They're going to go out. I think they should look and go out and find a running back to just add to like that. Hey, because I don't want them to turn Gibbs into Montgomery and Gibbs. Gibbs is so good at Gibbs's plays. I want to just Gibbs does Gibbs stuff. Can they find someone off the streets who, you know what I mean? Or on someone's practice squad to where they'd be like, that guy can just come in and be our bruiser and run the Montgomery plays. So Gibbs can still run the Gibbs plays. We'll just now be 70% Gibbs plays as opposed to 50% Gibbs plays like we were. I don't want all of a sudden now for Gibbs to just be the 4-down back. Like keep Gibbs, what Gibbs does is really special, and those plays are special. Don't make him run Montgomery's plays now.
Yeah. No, I do agree. I mean, I think he can do with a little bit larger of a workload, but to get someone still that can handle
in his offense still.
Goal line. Yeah. Let's talk Thursday Night Football real quick. A brutal game, but we got to talk about it because the Rams are,
Niners are dead
right now. Yeah. 49ers ruined their chances. This was a candidate for worst loss, certainly, but it's just, it almost seemed like it was a foregone conclusion ahead of the game, the way the Rams have been playing. And so the Rams find themselves, in the playoffs, if they were to start today in the 4 seed, winning the division 8-6. It was 12-6. So you still have some question marks, maybe a little bit. It took 4 field goals. They weren't able to punch it in. Cooper Kupp was left without a catch. So, like, the Rams definitely got to figure some stuff out there. But they had looked good coming into this game. And They beat a division opponent who
Good.
obviously, Shanahan and McVay have had their battles over the years.
Oh, yeah.
This was just, this is definitely about getting the win and and taking the division, which they now have a hold of thanks to some losses by Seattle, and the Cardinals are, making a push, but it's a little probably too late for them. But yeah, overall, I think the Rams need to convince some people again, like get that offense back in rhythm for next week, but you'll take it in the interim.
I think you're going to see a really great Rams team next week because this is again, it's a young Rams defense and an overall young Rams team, but they're really old at their two really key players, Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. And when you go from a shootout win at home, emotional win against Buffalo, where you're scoring 40 points and it's a shootout, Matt Stafford looked like a shot fighter. He looked like the ace on who had to like pitch on short rest in the World Series. Like, fuck, I mean, I'm going to go because I'm the ace, but that first half of the game, he was trash. And then who played better in the second half when it came down to it? He outplayed Purdy, and he helped them win the football game. So I feel really confident in the Rams in that way. Now he gets the extra rest, resets his body. I think the Rams are absolutely the team to beat in the West. I felt so good about my Rams pick at the start of the year. Then it went to trash. I'm going to keep that feeling good about it. I didn't think this is how they'd get to this point, but kudos to the Rams for doing it. And for the 49ers, I think there's two things to say, and we'll talk so much in the offseason about them, but I think there's two things to say. Appreciate the run you just went on. Like, you can appreciate it, even though this year seems like, okay, we're going to have to reset. Appreciate the 2 Super Bowls in 5 years, 3 NFC championships. Appreciate it all, but also be aware of the fact that you cannot pay people for what they've done for you. You have to decide, what are we going to be next? What are we going to do next? And I would not sign Brock Purdy to a deal. Look at what the Dolphins, we just talked about the Dolphins. I swear to God, if they do it with Purdy, they're going to be the Dolphins for the next couple of years. Now, Shanahan is capable, and I think Lynch is a good enough GM as well for them to find ways to get into the playoffs. But I truly think if you pay Brock Purdy money that you're like you paid Dak Prescott or Tua, I will never pick the 49ers to
they'll be
win
in purgatory.
To win, to be a favorite in the NFC ever again, as long as that contract stands. It's just not right. We saw it this year. Purdy's been fairly healthy all year, and he's been pretty weaponless all year, and he's been pretty pedestrian all year.
Yeah. No, it's been bad, and it's been telling. It's shown you that outside of ideal, perfect circumstances, he struggles. Kind of like the quarterback in Miami that we're seeing right now. When things aren't tailor-made.
A lot of quarterbacks. I mean, even Sam Darnold.
Yes,
Sam Darnold, we're praising him, and we're going to keep praising him. But if Sam Darnold ends up with a defensive head coach and a defensive culture next year on a bad team, like in the Raiders, he's not going to throw 30 touchdowns and 10 picks. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. No, that much is very true. A team that seems to be just able to shrug off any adverse circumstance is the Kansas City Chiefs as well. They win 21-7 over the Browns, who, by the way, look like they're going to probably be starting Dorian Thompson-Robinson this upcoming week over Jameis Winston, because it was a brutal showing from Jameis and the Browns offense.
They should just try to lose. At this point now, it's like,
try and lose
the best draft pick. Let's try to lose.
Yeah, no question. Obviously, the headline coming out of this game was that Mahomes gets injured. It hurts his ankle.
It's like we're living in. It's like the Groundhog's Day. The Chiefs are really good, and Mahomes has a late ankle injury in a season.
He's getting beat up. Seemingly a little more this year than maybe some years past, but the X-rays were negative. He did log a full practice today. I saw that there was context around that where they weren't doing too much physical work in practice, so it was more, mental reps nonetheless. But the fact that he, didn't have to be away from practice or anything, he's going to play. Like, that's just they're about to lock up the 1 seed, and I think that's important to them. It definitely is. So I would be kind of surprised at this point if he doesn't play next week. But hey, the Chiefs are mortal. And I think we're seeing, like, if you can get consistent pressure on Mahomes, and he
With
will
that left
face some trouble.
tackle,
Yeah,
that
it's not a good situation for them because in years past they had Hill and a younger Kelsey, and now their ability to get the ball out quick maybe isn't as easy as it had been in the past. They will get Hollywood Brown back, so I wonder how much of a difference that's going to make. But I kind of doubt, Mark, that he's going to really be fully inserted into the offense before the playoffs come around, just because it's
I
hard to
mean,
get on a moving train, as Mike Tomlin would say.
what I will say is I'm sure there's going to be there's already Andy Reid is just too good for him to not already have the package of plays that are the Hollywood Brown plays.
Right,
And then
yeah.
it grows every week, right? And let's get the chemistry and let's grow. I truly think the Chiefs are, to me right now, if I had to bet who's winning the Super Bowl, I'd go with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'll tell you why. It's because time and time again, this team is the game's gonna have to go through Arrowhead, which is we saw it last year. The whole thing was they're on the road. Can they win on the road? They fucking dominated on the road. Now they're gonna be back at Arrowhead. Noah Gray has really stepped up. He's a really good young tight end. When Hopkins and Juju need to make plays, they're making plays for this team. And when they need to run the ball, they've eased Pacheco back in. He's alive, and the defense still is playing really good football for them. And at the very last minutes of the game, they have the best play calling head coach, and they have the most clutch gamer quarterback in NFL history. And so I'm not worried about the Chiefs at all. The Chiefs are the two-time defending Super Bowl champions, and they have the best record in the NFL.
Yeah, that's
I,
that's all you need to
I
to
know
know, and
people
and
we
on the
want to.
brink of a 1 seed.
I will say my kernel of concern. I should copyright that phrase for the show.
Yeah, kernel of
The,
concern, I
the
like it.
kernel of concern is they haven't scored just 44, and I'd love to see that. I'd love to see them go to the Texans this week and just be like, they beat the Texans 37-13, and it's just Mahomes has 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions, 350 yards, and it looks like he did when he was his MVP. But I also think it's funny because I think Mahomes is, even though he's still in the prime of his career, it's like he's already entered the Brady portion of his career, where the Brady late portion, where it's like, to just get me the playoffs. Like, I don't care. Like, okay,
Yeah, I'll just take care of it.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's very
Yeah,
true.
Lamar's got 34 touchdowns. I have 22 touchdown passes. Don't care. Like, I have three of these bad boys, and I'm just worried about the next one. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, we've never seen anything like this, and that's coming from literally just one era prior, seeing Tom Brady win 7
It's
Super
just
Bowls,
so different.
and yet it's
It's
different.
so different.
It is different. Yeah, yeah. The Bengals win 37-27 over the Titans. Neither of these teams are going to the playoffs, but again, I mean, it's do
The
you
Bengals
you know
have
what?
life.
It's almost maybe good that Burrow's team is 6-8, because otherwise it would probably be impossible to stomach having this good of a season, but still losing the MVP to Josh Allen.
I hope the Bengals end up 9-8. I hope they're there and alive until that final week, because they're just so much fun offensively. I think the storyline for the Bengals will just be, what's up with Zach Taylor? Seems to be a little trouble in paradise. And then they haven't
Yeah.
paid Higgins or Chase. And it's like, this offense is so elite. Breaking it up would be the stupidest thing you could do.
They're going to pay Chase. I just don't think they'll pay Higgins, and then
so we gotta
you'll
figure
figure it
that
out.
out.
But
And with
that's the
Titans,
move. I mean, you have to pay Chase. You have
and
to.
with the Titans, I'll just say this: like, a couple of weeks ago, I was on the whole like, maybe you just go start Will Levis next year. If I'm the Titans, I'm more in the like, are we in the running for Sam Darnold for next year type of thing? Are we in the running for Aaron Rodgers next year type of thing? Because again, I think defensively they're a piece or two away, and then they just need consistent, solid quarterback play. And I think the Titans would be a real handful for a lot of teams if they had that.
Yeah, I mean, and they're playing great defense. I mean, would they take a quarterback though? I mean, right now, what they have the 3rd pick right now, something like that.
I think New England is 3rd behind New York and the Raiders. Go to tankathon.com.
Yep, going there right now, checking it out.
I think
Yeah,
it's
you're
New
right. Wow,
England third.
Tennessee's 6 at 3-11. There's so many bad teams in the
So many
league right
bad
now.
teams, and they have like a quality win or two. So if I was Tennessee, we'll see. I mean, again, we get to offseason talk, but yeah, I mean, they're not as in a bad of a situation as like the Giants or the Raiders, because their division is still feeling like it's obtainable, right? Like it's an obtainable division.
How do you feel about the Commanders? I mean, they're 9-5, and I know that they haven't really been a topic of discussion lately because they did go into that slump for a little bit, but and they beat the Saints by 1 point.
Yeah,
But it's like they're 9-5 though. Like, this team is probably going to get to 10 wins, and they might get to 11. Like, that's I don't know. It's just like they're a sneaky team. I don't know how much, waves they can.
They just don't have a
cause in the
signature
playoffs,
win.
but
They don't have a signature win. And if they win, if they're able to win this week at home against Philly, that's a signature win, right? Like, I don't even care how they win that game. It could be 10-7. But if they're able to win week 6, like, they need a signature win against a really quality opponent.
Like, I guess the win against the Bengals early in the year was pretty epic, but again, like, the Bengals defense is so bad.
Yeah, and I'm talking especially because they win on the slump and you lose to Dallas when you need to win that game, right? Like, I need a late season signature big win, and they have Atlanta
next week. They have the Eagles,
and they have Atlanta. They got flexed to Sunday night. That game got flexed to Sunday night, week 17. So. I think we're going to learn a lot about Washington. But I think, listen, they're making the playoffs in a rookie year. This is gravy. Everything's gravy. The thing about you have to be slightly worried if you're Washington, and again, this is like first world problems. Like, I'd kill to worry about this right now, is that look what happened to the Texans. They're kind of the Texans of this year. Now, the Texans won the division. They're not going to win their division. But, like, what is the growth plan, right? Is it like, let's go all in and sign a diva wide receiver? That's what the Texans did. And it seemed to have kind of pushed them down a peg. Like, so where's the growth trajectory for Washington? I don't know. Do I think Washington's going to go on the road as the 7th seed in the NFC and win at Philly or win at Detroit or win at Minnesota? No, I don't think they're going to do that. But I think they're absolutely going to be feisty in that game. They could be feisty in that game. And we'll learn how feisty they could be this week if they win at home against Philly.
The Ravens destroyed the New York Giants 35-14. You aforementioned Lamar Jackson with 5 touchdown passes.
He was not in the MVP discussion last week. He's back in it because you played the Giants and you crushed them. Again,
that's a franchise record, 9 losses in a row for the New York Giants. As long as they've been around,
the Giants have pieces. The Giants have pieces. They're so much like the Bears. Like, they are a family-owned franchise in the big market that when they do not have a Tom Coughlin or a Mike Ditka, like an alpha male leading their team, because the family is just dumb and they're like, oh, we don't really know what we're doing. We're just, wear your tie into the office, blah, blah, blah. We're good people. It's like you need someone in that organization, a Tom Coughlin, a Mike Ditka, who's like, I'm in charge of football, and you guys just write the fucking checks and shut the fuck up. When they have that, then they're going to be good. I think Brian Daboll can be that person for them. Brian Daboll, and I think the owner knows, I think Mara knows, he got fucked with the Daniel Jones thing. It's like, wait a minute. We made the Daniel Jones decision. Our coach was so good, he made Daniel Jones win a playoff game, and we fell for it. As opposed to saying, crap, we have such a good coach, let's go get him a quarterback. We fell for it. And I think there's a little bit of that belief in Daboll. And they're now actively trying to lose. When Tim Boyle and Tommy DeVito and all this stuff, like, I think the ownership can have some clarity on that. And I'll say this for the Ravens. Kudos. You go into the big spread, you cover the big spread, you throw for 5 touchdowns, you take care of business. Like, that means something. That matters.
It does. I do want to bring this up, and I was gonna really save this for the offseason talk, but I'm probably gonna forget. And since we already were talking the Giants real quick, I do just want to point this out. I've been a little bit skeptical, right, of Brian Dable over the last couple of years. I know
Yeah.
you've been a pretty ardent supporter of his, and getting the right quarterback would do a lot. I do just want to point this out from Connor Hughes, who tweeted this on X. Um, Talks about how he says the Giants have regressed each of their 3 seasons under Joe Shane and Brian Dable. Most alarming is the offense, which is averaging a league worst 14.8 points per game. That is worse than Jason Garrett, Freddie Kitchens, Mike Kafka, and 25 plus years of New York Giants football. Here is Brian Dable's offensive rankings without Josh Allen as an offensive coordinator in his career. He started out as an OC from 09 to 2012, and then he had a hiatus where he was an assistant before taking the OC job with Buffalo. So from 09 to 2012, his offenses were 32nd and 29th, 29th or 31st, 22nd, and then 24th to 32nd. I don't know what the commas are for. Because it says like 24th, comma 32nd in 2012. I don't know what that is. But anyway, bottom of the league. 2018-19 without Josh Allen in Buffalo. 30th and 24th. Then gets Josh Allen. Actually, Josh Allen was 2019, right? So they improved to 24th that year in his rookie year. Then they go tied for second with Josh Allen 2020, 5th in 2021, 2022, then when he gets with the Giants, back to 18th. Last year, 29th. And then this year, they're at the bottom of the league. So I'm just saying, without Josh Allen, Brian Dable's had a string of like 5 quarterbacks where his offenses have been, bottom 5, 6, 7. I don't know if I'm ready to crown this guy.
No, listen, I'm certainly not crowning him. I'm just saying I can make a defense for why he should stay. Now again, I've said it with my own organization, clean slates and a GM, coach, and quarterback, if you're drafting a quarterback all in the same thing, is to me the best way to do it. We've seen it historically. That structure works the best. So if they let him go, that's fine. I will just say this.
You think about, though, like what Kevin O'Connell's doing with Sam Darnold. It's like, yes, Dable couldn't even grasp that with Daniel Jones, and Malik Neighbors is a stud.
But he did. He did get Daniel Jones to lead them to a playoff victory.
Well, yes. Yeah, but on the backs of a 25th ranked offense.
Daniel Jones got injured last year. That's a wash because your backups, and he had fun with Tommy DeVito for like 2 games. But again, Dable can't sit there and say, I want Tommy DeVito as my backup quarterback. Every head coach is going to want the best backup quarterback available, right? The GM and the owner, like, they decided to go cheap on all that because they paid Daniel Jones. He gets injured. And look what happens. This year, they went with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is a shell of himself, was not capable of progressing. And listen, Kevin O'Connell picked up Daniel Jones, and he's in the Vikings, still on the Vikings practice squad, has not been elevated to the game day roster yet. So, like, as much as I'm praising Kevin O'Connell for, like, I think if Brian Daboll gets Sam Darnold, like, I think you're seeing a competent offense with that. I think their offensive line is not good enough. I don't need to spend 20 minutes defending Brian Daboll. I'll just say this.
Yeah.
I think Daboll, if Daboll gets fired and the Bears interview him, I'm not upset about that. Like, I'm not upset about that.
I'm telling him to be the hire?
I wouldn't want him over Ben Johnson or Mike Vrabel, but I'm not upset about it. I'm like, all right, so I can live with that. Yeah. I can live with them giving Brian Daboll an interview, and if he gets hired, I can convince myself that I feel positive about what he's going into. He knows big city markets. He knows home ownership. He knows underperforming franchises, and he also, with quarterback who's mobile and a playmaker, can do some really, really good things. And obviously Daniel Jones isn't in the same league as far as a passing quarterback that Caleb Williams is. And so
Yeah.
That's where my head's
but-
at. I get if Giants fans are done with him and they just want a fresh start. Totally get it. Totally get it.
Yeah. The Cowboys beat the Panthers 30-14. I don't think we need to go
Bryce
over
Young,
anything in this
I
matchup,
bummed
right?
for him. I wanted him to win as the favorite, but kind of bummed for
Yeah,
him.
same.
That's really it.
That would have been cool.
And also,
That would've
Mike
been cool.
McCarthy probably saved his job with this win. Like Mike McCarthy beating Washington a couple weeks ago. This win as an underdog on the road, probably saving his job as a head coach.
It's possible. Yeah, because Jerry Jones loves like to have the excuse available to not make any drastic changes.
Yeah.
And the excuse yet again that they don't have Dak is right there and waiting. How proud are you of Aaron Rodgers for looking good against the Jacksonville Jaguars defense? 32-25. The Jets are back, baby. Let's go. They can get to 6 wins this season.
I'll say this. I'm okay with another year of Aaron Rodgers drama in New York. So I'm okay with another year of Aaron Rodgers drama somewhere in the league, because now it's not the main story. It's kind of a fun after story. So I'm glad that he's showing enough of a spark here that it's like, no, he can make it through a whole season healthy. And at the end of the year, when, things get going and there's finally some continuity after all the chaos of what that team's been through, that, hey, him and Devontae Adams can still put up some numbies. So that's all I have to say about that. And I do think, again, the Jaguars will also be in the market for a head coach. I do expect Doug Peterson to get fired. I'm kind of jealous of the Jaguars. I wish I said it all along. I didn't want Eberflus to be fired mid-season. You look what happens. It can just get so ugly quickly when you lose that guess. Look at what happened with the Jets. The Bears, I think, are prime examples of like completely rudderless, and it's just getting so ugly so quickly. You could always blame Flus when there's something goes wrong. Now,
yeah, but on the flip side, they could potentially, I don't know if they're doing the necessary work, but get a head start on your next,
If you're not doing your research on possible future head coaching candidates when you have a head coach, then shame on you, because you're doing research on possible future quarterbacks when you have a quarterback. You're doing research on possible future.
Not the owners, though. The owners aren't doing that.
Yeah, but my owner shouldn't be involved in the fucking head coaching search anyways.
Well,
get out of here.
That much is true.
Let your football people hire the football people.
I agree with you there. Hey, Bill Polian's coming on board to provide some more advice.
I hear Bill Polian's name. He hasn't. He built a team 30 years ago in the NFL. No more building teams.
Yeah, please leave. I feel like we ask this question every week, at least for the last month. Are the Broncos for real? They're 9-5. They won 31-13 over a team that
did Jonathan
had
Taylor
everything
just
to
fumble
lose.
and the momentum completely shifted?
That was terrible. That was really, really bad. I actually, I got to give Sean Payton his flowers. He came to the defense of Jonathan Taylor in that situation and was basically saying, like, I hate that the rule is that way. It makes no sense that someone can have that good of a play and all of a sudden we have the football after that. And I get that. That's been a problem for years. They have brought up this issue.
It happens every
year.
It happens.
Stop doing it.
Stop
doing it. That's like 4 times this year where players
just like we see guys
right at the goal line.
I know.
Just trying to celebrate or switch hands. Like, what are you doing? A wide open play. I just don't understand it. But look, the Broncos.
It was a big win. It's a really big win because it was they needed to, because it's like you need to beat this team to secure your spot in the playoffs. And the Broncos basically have like a 99% chance. They've almost locked up a playoff spot. And I'll say this.
Yeah,
Dan,
what are they? They're the 6th seed right now, and they have a game up on now Indy and LA, Miami.
I'll say this about the Broncos. They obviously, I was as right as I've been about the Rams this year. I was as wrong about the Broncos. I had them as a 5-win team and flailing because I didn't believe in Bo Nix. I still don't believe in Bo Nix's ceiling, but I believe what Sean Payton has built is a heck of a program. He's built he's put a program together, and I give him a lot of credit. I mean, they are in cap hell and they're doing this, so that means that's coaching. Yeah. Like the Broncos are the Chargers are the epitome of like teams that were shaky and bad cap situations, and now you just insert all you change is coaching, and getting some guys out of a locker room, and look what they've done. Coaching matters in the NFL in that way. Just like you see in Washington getting rid of an owner and changing your quarterback, boom. Like you can make quick, drastic changes in the NFL if they're the right drastic changes. The Broncos are an example of that. Again, I don't know what the Broncos' ceiling is. I think the ceiling is a wild card loss, but I think we'll learn a lot more about that and what the Broncos' ceiling is coming up on Thursday night.
Yep, very true. The Pittsburgh Steelers are on the road at Philly and lost 27-13. The Eagles' drama around AJ Brown, obviously that was quelled. AJ Brown had a big day, so did Devontae Smith, and the passing game came alive, if you will. About the only thing the Steelers did well in this game was hold Saquon Barkley, which is, something that they're good at, shutting down the run when they focus on that. But other than that, the offense looked anemic, Mark. I mean, without George Pickens, been saying this for a couple weeks now. I have no idea what the deal is with Mike Williams. Like, he's just not he's not running routes. He's not seeing targets. It doesn't make sense to me. And Mike Tomlin keeps punting on the question, saying, oh, and any day now, like, he's going to, it's like, you don't have George Pickens and you're still opting to roll out like Scotty Miller and Ben Skoranek out on the field over Mike Williams. So to me, that says
he's not
their
an
depth
NFL player
situation
anymore.
is even worse than
he's not.
Yeah.
I don't think he's an NFL player anymore. I mean, it's just like, yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
I would love to chalk this up from a Pittsburgh perspective as a, hey, you got your ass beat. It happens sometimes in the league. That's probably one of the top 3 teams in the NFL anyways. So you take your lumps and you move forward. You still clinched a playoff berth in this game. You have a chance if they beat the Ravens on Saturday to win the division. So there's obviously a lot, on the horizon. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said like this wasn't a really concerning game. Just from the offensive perspective, like it does become clear that yes, they can win a playoff game because they're probably going to win their division. I certainly hope so. And they'll probably be able to beat a Denver, I think, or a Chargers team. Like I would be confident in that. But beyond that, like this kind of told me, like, can they go toe to toe with Kansas City or God forbid Buffalo? Like the Philadelphia's offense is for real. They are a really formidable team, and they showed, hey, if as much as we've leaned on Saquon, we don't need him. We can have that passing game come alive against a really good defense. So I think Philly showed a lot. Rebound quickly, shut the noise down. It was getting a little noisy there. So I thought that was a really encouraging win for Philly. And for Pittsburgh, it sucks, but there's not much time to really dwell on that because you have the Ravens on Saturday and then Christmas Day, a turnaround to play Kansas City.
Really quick games and 2 really big games. I mean,
3 games in 11 days,
and it could be a 3-game losing streak. Let's knock on wood. I'm just saying
it could be. It could. Of course.
Things could change quickly. I think you need George Pickens, his crazy, his over the top, his and his play on the field are all really, I think, important for the Steelers' just offense swagger and confidence in making plays.
Well, there's nothing for the defense to have to focus their attention on, so they can stack the box and shut down the run all day.
I honestly hate to say it, but it felt like this was a game where it's like I honestly was like I could have used Justin Fields. Like it felt like a Justin Fields Steelers, like where it's like I know he's not better than Russ at running the offense, but he's just better at like I need another guy out there who's just an elite playmaker, and that's what Justin is. Like he's just an elite playmaker, right? Whether it's a deep ball or an explosive run or whatever. And so it just felt like you were outmatched. And maybe if you just have George Pickens, then it makes it more of a fair fight. Like you bring a gun to a gunfight, right?
No, I mean they just had better. Like Tomlin and a lot of people, you've heard the phrase, it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmies and Joes.
Yeah.
The Steelers cannot win they can't compete with scheme. And they never have. Mike Tomlin has never been we're going to beat you with scheme kind of guy. It's we're gonna beat you because we're gonna draft great guys and develop them,
Yeah.
and we're just gonna have studs, and you're gonna have to contend with our studs. The problem is when it's mano a mano with great players versus great players, you're now
And
putting
X's and
yourself
O's
boxing
matter.
yourself. Yeah, to where like what is going to differentiate you when it comes to those big teams, the Buffaloes, the Detroits, the Chiefs, the Lions, or the Eagles. All of these guys have equal, if not more talented players across the board. That's when you're boxing yourself in because you're not. I mean, they ran into 8-man boxes a lot in this game.
Didn't make sense.
It's bad.
And I wasn't watching the game live, but I've watched it since. And I kept saying to myself too, Vic Fangio had a hell of a game. Like Vic Fangio just said, like the defensive coordinator for the Eagles is just like, I'm coaching better defense than Mike Tomlin is. And it just felt like offensively there was no second and third punch and second and third gears for Pittsburgh. So I'm not
their
running out
penalties were
Pittsburgh.
terrible. They were behind the sticks every drive. They ran, Mark, 43 plays. No team has run fewer this entire season in a game.
They only had
plays.
2 possessions in the second half because they couldn't
11
get
plays in the second half. 11 offensive plays in the entire second half.
You couldn't get first downs and you couldn't get stops.
That's a game right there. I mean, you're not going to win a game like that.
No, it's
and
just
of course, Najee, like he has like 5 career fumbles, and this was his first in like over a year. So,
and so
there you go.
It felt like one of those. It does feel a little bit like a burn the tape game. Like we've got to focus in on this Saturday and then Christmas. Like these are extremely important games. Like the season is Baltimore, right? And so Mike Tomlin will be an underdog on the road. I feel you got to feel good about that. You hope that Pickens is back, and
TJ got hurt in this game too. That we didn't mention, but Tomlin said like. And I do kind of agree with it. A lot of the local media in Pittsburgh is not. They say save these guys for another week. Tomlin has said in his press conference, I agree with him. He said we're treating this game like everything. We have something to get here, which is the division.
Yeah.
So it's going to be if these guys can play, we're putting them out there to play. So
and I like that.
And it sounds encouraging for TJ and George too. So it seems I think that we're going to have both of those guys out there, and maybe just maybe they can win the division and then, kind of get this thing turned around because Wednesday's going to be a really tough game.
Let's be honest. I know this seems weird, but with this year, what the expectations are going into this year, a division title for Pittsburgh feels more important than like we're in the wild card and we won a game in the wild card round. You know what I mean?
That's true, but the fact that they haven't won a playoff game in 7 years,
so long, I know.
you
have a better chance of winning a playoff game at home. Renegade. We got Renegade.
Absolutely.
I'll say this about Philly really quickly. My kernel of concern for Philly is I don't think the beef is totally squashed, and I don't think that video of Sirianni trying to talk to Jalen Carter, like that's embarrassing.
Line coach,
that's embarrassing. And
putting him in
it feels like it feels like the Eagles are The Office. I mean, they're close to Scranton, PA. It's like The Office, where it's like they're all like we're running. Are doing our jobs, and the leader who thinks he's in charge is kind of like the joke where it's like, yeah, Michael, you're in charge. Like, well, we're all doing our job. I mean, it feels a lot like that. And maybe that's fine. But like Sirianni, again, his job, if you're not calling the plays, you're not calling the defense, your job is to make sure the culture is strong in that locker room. And I don't feel the culture is strong in Philly. And it feels like if Philly were to lose to Washington, and maybe get kind of punched in the mouth, it feels like it could unravel really quickly, doesn't it? Like as good as they are, as talented as they are,
it
feels
could.
Like it could unravel. I mean, like your wide receiver basically had to say last week, what's wrong with your offense? Passing. And then what happens? You pass them the ball a ton. Like it's like they're that fragile. And that's not a great sign for Philly when we saw what happened to them at the end of the year last year.
Yeah, they could unravel. There's no question about it. All right, we 2 more games to get to. Well, real quick, like the Cardinals, Patriots. Cardinals win 30-17, but it's like almost too little, too late, right? Not like
they killed themselves.
They're not out of the playoffs, but they have to play the Rams and the 49ers to finish the season.
They got to win out. And they're capable of that. I'll say this: I still am just waiting for Kyler to be Superman, and I just don't
Yes.
know if he has it. I think we're just learning he doesn't have the extra year. He's like better than Tua, but he's not in the category of like those top 10 guys. He's in this own weird
He's
category
just
that he's
really
in.
talented. I don't know if we've ever really seen anything like this, really.
It's
Like
hard
a
to put a
quarterback
finger
with
on.
his level of talent
He's
that
kind of like
doesn't
Tony
just
Romo.
possess the
It's
Yeah.
like he's not a top 10 guy, a top 5
But
guy.
Romo was a leader and, like, had he was a good 4th quarter guy. Like, we haven't
Yeah, but I think
seen that really
Kyler,
from Kyle. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a guy who's like, man, he's good. When he's at his peak, he's good, but he's still not top 5. And yet he's not just like a, you know, manage the game. Romo was never a game manager. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
kind of weird. It's hard. I would also say that maybe Jay Cutler, but like he doesn't turn the ball over like Cutler, and he doesn't like where it's just and he doesn't have the arm of Cutler, but just a guy like that where you're like not a game manager,
That actually might be a good comp.
like not a
Like a
game
Pro
manager,
Bowl
but
caliber quality athlete, but the
talent.
leadership is iffy and,
Yeah,
um,
it's hard. It's a
yeah,
hard one to put
yeah.
your finger on. But Drake May again. I still think Drake May has a really high ceiling, and I think the Patriots should be excited about Drake May.
I
Uh,
agree, I agree.
that'll be a fun. The Patriots will be a
I don't know
fun
about Gerard Mayo,
offseason.
though,
Yeah,
because
and exactly. There'll be a
we
fun
talked
offseason
about
storyline.
some
And
press
if you're Mike
conference,
Vrabel,
issues.
you go to New England. I think Drake May.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes,
I
he's
think
familiar at the place. And the
that
Patriots
sounds
should
attractive.
hire
I
him
hate to say it.
yesterday.
I hate to say it because I want Mike Vrabel in Chicago, but that feels like that would be home.
Yep. Yep, that would be really good. No, yeah, if you're Jerome Mayo, you cannot throw your offensive staff under the bus. It just
No.
can't do it. All right, well, we're not going to talk Falcons Raiders because I just don't have the bandwidth to.
The only thing I'll say
handle
about that
game.
is
It's
that
gross.
the only reason they're starting Kirk Cousins is because of the contract at this point. Like they've
Yeah,
got to
dude, he
ride it
looks
out.
so old.
They've
So
got to
old
ride it
right
out, and they've got to ride it out. And until they're out of the playoff contention, you got to just ride it out. This was the 1 year with Kirk, and
Yeah.
I know it sucks, but Atlanta's not winning the Super Bowl anyways. They're like, put Michael Penix and win the division. Why? Like why? Like you're not going anywhere. Michael
I guess
Penix
it would just be just to get him reps, maybe.
but again, like I'd make the argument like just get him reps next year. Like you're still
Yeah.
you're not the Lions, you're not the Eagles, like you're not beating those teams.
Yeah, no, that's very true. All right, I want to hear about your Bears. Drop one to Minnesota. It does look like
I want to talk
a
about
complete and utter
Minnesota.
collapse.
Dude, I want to
Yeah,
talk about Minnesota.
please.
Minnesota 12-2. Minnesota is extremely surprised team. I mean, I picked Minnesota to be fourth in division like an idiot because I thought that Sam Darnold would just be like an average and they would eventually kind of like flounder and be like, hey, well, we're building for next year with JJ McCarthy. And I forget that Kevin O'Connell is an elite head coach.
Really good.
That Brian Flores is an elite defensive coordinator and that they have drafted extremely well. You watch the Vikings play and you go, who the frick is that guy? I never heard of that guy before. They're like, oh, they found him in the third round. He's just really good. Meanwhile, the Bears, it's like, who's the awful left tackle who can't block anyone? Oh, they draft him in the third round.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So my third round guys can't play. My third round guys can't play. Your third round guy is a Pro Bowler. So I don't, that's where I'm at. And I think the thing that Ryan Poles didn't realize in firing Eberflus, all the heat is on Poles right now. Because Dan, as you're looking around at this Bears roster, you're saying to yourself, Montez Sweat, less than 7 sacks this year. I think it's like less than 6 sacks. He was paid to be a double-digit sack guy. He's paid to be, you get off the bus and like, fuck, we got to deal with that guy. He's been a no-show. You look at the draft in the third round alone of Velus Jones and this kid out of Yale, the tackle. I can't remember who they had in the third round last year too, but again, no shows. And then you say to yourself, the Chase Claypool move was bad. You say to yourself, the Nate Davis move was a disaster. And you start looking at the DeAndre Swift move as a disaster. Get rid of Montgomery. Let's go with DeAndre Swift. Disaster.
Yeah, that hasn't turned out well.
Disaster.
Yeah.
And so Keenan Allen, I'm done with Keenan Allen. I know he had the best game last night, but Keenan Allen drops balls at an insane rate with the Chicago Bears. Not with the Chargers, he never did, but with the Bears, he does. And again, it's just like a curse. It's a curse. This team is just rotten. It's rotten to its core because the building is rotten. Halas Hall is rotten. The
biggest hire coming up in your fandom life.
It is because Caleb Williams is so good. And I know people are like, you don't believe that he's not good. Just Caleb, who has more touchdown passes, Caleb Williams or Jane Daniels? Oh, I'll wait. They have the same amount of touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Who has less interceptions, Jane Daniels or Caleb Williams? Oh, I'll wait. It's Caleb Williams. Like Caleb Williams, I think I saw the stat today. If the season ended today, he has the third best rookie season for a first quarterback taken in NFL history. Better than Andrew Luck's, only behind CJ Stroud's and Baker Mayfield's, where it's like overall like rating of just how like Caleb Williams, and he's doing this with his head coach got fired, and he's on his third offensive coordinator. And consistently, if you go on Twitter today and just search Dan Orlovsky Bears or Brian Baldinger Bears, what are they saying? Why are there two wide receivers in this area? Like the offensive scheming is just shite. It's shite. And yes, Caleb Williams holds onto the ball way too long, but he's not throwing interceptions. He hasn't thrown an interception since the Jags game. The last time they won a game, they're in an 8-game losing streak with a rookie quarterback, and he hasn't thrown an interception.
It's been 8 games.
Yes,
since
he also doesn't fumble. He also doesn't fumble, right? Like he gets hit, but he doesn't fumble. And also, people were like, Justin Fields won more games last year at the Bears. Justin Fields could not stay healthy to save his life within a season. He never had a season where he stayed healthy. He was bigger and stronger.
How you look when you're playing too.
He's bigger and stronger, but he broke a finger. He injured an ankle. Like Caleb Williams is fluid. He's Patrick Mahomes. He's the closest. He's stocky. He is. I know exactly what it is. He is a step above Kyler Murray, and he's a step below Patrick Mahomes. And if there's anything that we just said about that is, like he's in between those two guys physically, like the size of his body, talent in between those guys. He can be a really special player in this league. If you find him someone who can help him become special, he can be a real special player. Why I think Ben Johnson is really intriguing is, what does Ben Johnson do? He runs out of center, under center. And look at what you get when you run Patrick Mahomes.
Dial up easy passes.
You get a quarterback who's capable of just things being defined for them. And then when the thing isn't defined, you go, dude, just make a play. You're amazing. That's what Josh Allen does. That's what Jared Goff does in that system. It's just like, dude, here's the defined easy read. And then if it's not there, just make a play because you're really fucking talented. And if Caleb Williams can live in that offense, now we got something really special. The other thing I'll say about a Mike Vrabel, why I'm excited, why I'd be wanting a Mike Vrabel is because what will Mike Vrabel do? Mike Vrabel will do what a culture center like Dan Campbell has done for Jane Daniels and say, I'm in charge of football. You're not going to have to worry about taking a timeout. You're not going to have to worry about being out-coached by the other team on the sideline like you've been consistently this whole year.
Just poor decisions
Remember what Mike Vrabel did to his own mentor, Bill Belichick. He used a rule that Belichick didn't know. Like Mike Vrabel cares about fucking football. He studies it. So I need one of those. I need something like that. Now, maybe I could also argue Joe Brady with the Bills. Like his name has been floated, the offense coordinator with the Bills. And I know that Josh Allen is special, but he at least puts Josh Allen, we've seen this year without Stephon Diggs, in a place to be special. Look at how open Shakir has been. Look at the unique ways they're using Mac Hollins. And look at the unique ways they're getting Dalvin Cook to running the ball. You know, Swift is a Dalvin Cook-esque type of running back. So, like, he at least has scheduled that offense. And then you say to him, dude, you just got to be a playmaker. And that's what Caleb Williams is. He's a playmaker, right?
Yeah.
So that's my rant on them. The Vikings are really good. The Vikings have a ceiling that is NFC Championship type of ceiling. And they're going to be a real tough out. They have a really great coach. They have a really great culture. They have a really great stadium. They have a really great fan base that cares. That was an electric atmosphere. The Bears had no chance in that game. And the Chicago Bears have talent. So if they get someone on offense who can turn Caleb Williams into a star, which he absolutely is capable of being, they'll be improved. Or if they get a coach who can just create the culture and be the ends all be all, they will also see a massive improvement next year. So one of those things is really, really important for the Chicago Bears to do.
Before we close out the show today, I want to get to your Super Bowl plane, and this is where I apologize. I got to switch something up on you a little bit. This is the surprise I was alluding to earlier. But
what have you done?
Look, yeah, so we're not going to be having any first class, business class economy this time around. This is a holiday show. And so we're unveiling the Mark Super Bowl sleigh. All right.
I love it. The Super Bowl sleigh. Again, at the top at
who's
Rudolph,
leading the pack?
Rudolph, yeah. I mean, these are the 4 teams. If any of these 4 teams are not in the Super Bowl, I'd be pretty surprised today. I still think these are your 4 teams to choose your Super Bowl matchup from. And that may change here. There's 3 giant weeks left in the season, but that's how I feel today.
Yeah, for those listening in, we got the Lions, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Bills. So the Bills and the Eagles have moved up since last week. All right, middle of the road.
So listen, if any of these teams made it to Super Bowl, would I be shocked? No, I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked. But I think all of these teams, if they're playing in an AFC or NFC title game, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Minnesota, the yellows and the purples, I would be like, absolutely. I can see Pittsburgh versus Kansas City at Kansas City, and they're playing in an AFC title game. I can see Baltimore, Buffalo, AFC title game. I can see Green Bay, Detroit, NFC title game. I can see Minnesota, Philadelphia, NFC title game. And I can see all of those games being really competitive. I think the 4 teams in the second class here, we'll call it the Blitzing class, they will be very competitive in an AFC or NFC title game.
All right. And the final leg here.
So
we've got the Rams, the Texans, and the Bucks.
These are teams that absolutely could ruin your team's chances. Like, they are now the teams that are like, oh, no. If you're a fan of any of the 8 teams that I previously mentioned, you are pissed if you are seeing one of these 3 teams show up, because they have nothing to lose, everything to gain. They have really good quarterbacks. They have weapons, and they have defenses that can make stops. They're not the Bills or the Lions defense. They can make stops, and they can make plays. And so that's interesting. I left off the Chargers. I left off the Broncos. I'm waiting for Thursday Night Football. Yeah. And Dan, that'll lead me quickly into a Week 16 preview here. If you want to,
absolutely
allow me to say this. I think there are 5 games that are absolute must-watch games. Find a way to watch them. I know some of them will be on at the same time, so find a way to do the dual screen. It starts Thursday Night Football, Denver at Chargers. We're going to learn a ton. Houston at Kansas City. If they sit Mahomes, it's less of a must-watch. But if Mahomes plays, it's a huge chance for Houston to do what we were talking about Washington doing, like get a signature win late in the season and skyrocket up the rankings, right? And for Kansas City, it's a chance to, once again, if Mahomes does play or doesn't play, if you win that game without Mahomes, like, it says a lot about your roster and your coaching with Carson Wentz, right? Pittsburgh and Baltimore is the number 1 game of the weekend. It is when a road underdog in this division is absolutely capable of winning that game. This game will determine the division, and this game will determine, truthfully, who I think is that 3rd team that can absolutely put the pressure on Buffalo and Kansas City in the AFC. You also then have Philly at Washington. We talked about that. Huge game. And then Minnesota at Seattle, I would include in the really important game, because Seattle, again, if they win out, they control their own destiny. So again, you have another chance for a big boy coming to your house. Can you rewrite the ship? Is Geno Smith going to play? And for Minnesota, you can't lose. You got to keep pace with Detroit, because Detroit is one of this. There's 6 other games that on paper you're like, ugh, but every one of these games is either a must win or the team is out and you get to hurt your rival, right? The Rams at the Jets, huge game for the Rams. Can't lose it. And if you're the Jets, play spoiler. Lions at the Bears, huge game for the Lions. You can't lose it. You got to keep pace. Can the Bears play spoiler? Tampa at Dallas. Dallas want to play spoiler. Tampa, you can't afford to lose. Atlanta versus the Giants at home against the Giants. Again, can't lose for Atlanta.
I won't be watching that game.
I won't be watching either.
Yeah.
Green Bay and New Orleans, Monday Night Football. Again, Green Bay, you've got to find a way to get to that number 5 seed, right? And you've got to find a way, if you're New Orleans, to play a little spoiler on Monday night on the road. And then New England, Buffalo, same thing. Buffalo, you got to try to keep pace. You got to try to lock up that 2 seed. And if New England, division rival, can you play spoiler? So that's 11 total games next weekend that have extremely important outcomes. And when you look at, if you're the NFL, that's an exciting thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, this is the time of year the NFL thrives on too. I mean, the ratings are going to be crazy. We got the Netflix games on Christmas Day. We've got Saturday, we got Thursday Night Football. So a lot to look forward to for sure. That should do it for our holiday episode here on the Football Lounge. Again, reminder, no episode next week, but we will come back with a full holiday recap of a lot of games. We'll have 2 weeks worth of games to talk about when we get back.
And the look ahead, we'll be back, and it'll be so many. There'll be so much will be decided by the time when we're back, which is exciting.
Yep, a lot to look forward to, no doubt. We hope you all have a safe and happy Christmas and happy holidays. And we'll talk to you just before the new year as we get ready for the NFL playoffs. See you soon.
This has been a For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network production. For more great content, subscribe to For Frequency's Sake on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.